In the vast and unpredictable ocean, where the secrets of the depths hide tales of courage and sacrifice, a silent saga awaits to be told. Get ready to delve into the dark depths of German submarines from World War II, where the line between life and death is as thin as the waves that surround them. An incessant battle against the unknown, where danger lurks with every dive, and courage is the only light in the darkness. Join us on this epic journey, where heroes confront their deepest fears in search of victory and survival. Be prepared to witness the true face of war at the bottom of the ocean. This is the beginning of a story that will challenge your perception of bravery and sacrifice. As soldiers, the journey begins now. Don't miss a moment. Like, share, and subscribe to not miss any content of this thrilling series. Welcome to General Jack's channel. Former British Prime Minister Winston Churchill used to say that submarines were the thing that scared him the most during the war. Nowadays, just hearing about submarines makes me think of scenes of merchant ships being ruthlessly hunted by these steel killers in the oceans. The German Luftwaffe even tried to bomb Britain into submission, but submarines posed an even greater threat. They could strangle our vital supplies from North America, jeopardizing not only our survival, but also the future of a Europe free from Nazi tyranny. But submarines weren't mythical creatures, as they were often portrayed by the Allied media. They were war machines operated by real people, some fighting for their country, others for the fascist ideal. And today, we're diving into this world of metal of the seas to better understand what these men faced. During World War II, the German Kriegsmarine had different classes of submarines in operation. But the Type 7C, commanded by Karl Donat, was the most common and feared. They were an evolution of the Type 7B, with greater range and the ability to intercept Allied convoys in the North Atlantic. These submarines were true ocean giants, but despite their grandeur, they had only about 50 crew members on board. Just imagine working and fighting in such tight quarters while being hunted by Allied navies. And so, within these war machines, the courage and determination of these men were tested at every turn.
In a submarine, every inch matters, but not in the way you might think. The numbers might seem reassuring, but in reality, there's barely enough space for the crew to move around. Every nook is occupied, whether it's by electrical equipment, armaments, or supplies for the long patrols. Sometimes it feels like the designers forgot that there were people inside. But a submarine isn't a luxury yacht. It's a relentless war machine. Just imagine 14 21-inch torpedoes ready to be fired at any moment. An explosive warhead capable of wreaking havoc at over 40 knots. When a skilled commander has an enemy ship in their sights, it's almost certain to be hit. And if one torpedo isn't enough, well, no self-respecting submarine captain will hesitate to fire another to ensure the job gets done. But torpedoes aren't the only weapon of submarines. Sometimes, the prey is so unprotected that they can even use the 88mm deck gun to dispatch it. In the early days, submarines found they could wreak havoc in other ways, proving they were a force to be feared on the seas.
The Royal Navy and the Royal Canadian Navy mounted a frenzied operation to protect merchant ships in convoys. Destroyers were on the front line, ready to confront the submarines. Often, these ships had far more firepower than the submarines, forcing the enemies to attack submerged, surfacing only to launch their torpedoes. But these submarines, despite being fearsome, had their weaknesses. Contrary to popular belief, they spent most of their time on the surface, diving only to attack or escape. The battery life was short, so they needed to surface to recharge, leaving them vulnerable to enemy attacks. Indeed, submarines were poor performers in surface battles. Without effective armaments against the Allies, they became easy prey when they surfaced. While submerged, they were agile hunters, but on the surface, they became easy targets. However, the key to any weapon is who wields it. Submariners needed to be fit, and that meant having a consistent diet to maintain strength. But they didn't have the luxury of a regular supply chain. They had to take everything they needed before setting off, filling every nook with supplies to last for weeks on end on dangerous patrols.
The Navy recognized the importance of nutrition and, in their typical fashion, implemented a strict regimen to maintain the health and well-being of their sailors. They understood that good food not only kept the body healthy but also provided some comfort during long patrols. With regular quality meals, crew members could find relief from stress and strengthen camaraderie bonds while sharing moments at the table. Due to the small crew size, many sailors had more than one responsibility. The navigator often took on the role of quartermaster, ensuring the submarine was well stocked before departure. On board, refrigeration was limited, so fresh foods were consumed early in the voyage, followed mainly by canned goods. The submarine galley was small, with minimal space, but any cook who could make the food more appetizing was highly valued. During patrols, crew members enjoyed 3 daily meals. Breakfast included coffee, milk soup, biscuits, and bread with butter or honey. Lunch often consisted of meat, potatoes, and vegetables, followed by fruits. For dinner, canned sausages or fish were served with bread and cheese, accompanied by a hot drink and chocolate. Given the long voyages, it was impossible to store supplies for the entire duration, so submarines needed to be refueled halfway through. For this, the Germans employed replenishment ships that met with submarines at sea.
These ships sometimes operated outside of Spain, which was officially neutral in the war, but the Spanish authorities turned a blind eye when the situation became too dangerous. The Germans employed a fleet of tanker ships designated as Type 14 by the EU, but referred to as milk cows by submarine crews to expedite construction. These ships shared many similarities with Type 7C and 24, although in the end only 10 were completed and all lost during the war. Refueling took place on the surface at night to avoid detection, but by October 1941, Allied aircraft were using radar to locate submarines on the surface, making refueling at any time extremely dangerous and stressful. Submarine crews worked in a 3-shift rotation during the day, each lasting 8 hours. One shift slept, another was on duty, and a third performed various tasks to keep the submarines operational. One of the most important functions was watch duty in the conning tower, where sailors scanned the area around and kept watch for Allied aircraft. During the summer months, this was one of the more preferable tasks as it provided fresh air and sunshine. However, in the winter months, it was one of the most dreaded due to the sea conditions and the constant rocking of the submarine, which could make even the most experienced violently seasick. Seasickness was as big a threat as the enemy, especially in the early days of the war, when the fleet was rapidly expanding and had to recruit inexperienced sailors. The crew of the U-570, for example, was so incapacitated by seasickness and so inexperienced, including their captain, that when they suffered only minor damage from an attack aircraft, they surrendered. The submarine was captured and pressed into service by the Royal Navy. Returning from a turbulent shift of duty, the crew had little time to rest. They could barely change their clothes, and there was no proper way to dry them, so they were left to air dry while they continued their tasks. The German Navy provided a special soap to try to wash the salt water off their skin, but fresh water was a scarce resource, so cleanliness was limited. Early into the patrol, the submarine already began to smell foul with accumulated body odor, and the men's faces quickly became covered in facial hair since they couldn't shave. Though submarine crews seemed unkempt compared to surface ship sailors with their immaculate uniforms and shaved faces, they earned tremendous respect for thriving in such adverse conditions. Their impact on Allied war efforts far exceeded their size. Among crew specialists, like radio operators, many operated outside the main watch rotation, while torpedo handlers lived almost entirely in their compartments. Sleep was a precious commodity for the crew, but bunks were squeezed into the few available spaces on submarines, often in the central corridor. Privacy was nearly non-existent, making using the bathroom a challenging task, especially with only 2 on-board bathrooms serving 50 men. Some of the least popular members of the crew were those who took too long in the bathroom, which was especially problematic early in the patrol when at least one bathroom was used for additional storage. While pursuing their targets, flushing was strictly prohibited, as the sound could be picked up by the hydrophones of the alert Allied escorts.
In the depths of submarines, dangers lurked around every corner, and the bathroom was no exception. Aboard the unfortunate U-1206, the crew faced an unexpected threat, a sewage system that proved more challenging to use than anticipated. A disoriented engineer turned the wrong valve, triggering a flood that turned the bathroom into an unwanted pool. The water, mercilessly, found its way into the battery compartment, creating a nightmare for the sailors. Contact with the batteries could cause short circuits and even release chlorine gas, a potential tragedy. The suffocating crew had to surface, desperate for fresh air, only to be greeted by the enemy. To keep morale high, captains turned to various distractions. Board games like chess and competitions with prizes, often in the form of extra chocolate, were common on board. Some fanatical Nazis took advantage of downtime to spread Hitler's distorted ideology, reading Mein Kampf or playing fervent speeches from the Führer. This practice became crucial later in the war when news of the Allies' terrible bombings reached their ears, leaving them with the weight of fear for loved ones back home. Meanwhile, submarines increasingly became like steel coffins, hiding young sailors in their confines as the threat loomed until Germany's surrender finally came.
The effectiveness of German submarines was harshly shaken by the evolution of enemy tactics and technology. The near invulnerability they once enjoyed unraveled in the face of Allied advances. Even diving no longer offered safety as the piercing sound of sonar echoed through the depths, revealing their positions. The arrival of Allied escort ships brought with it a sense of terror, the constant pulsing of propellers signaling an imminent threat. For young sailors, those final moments were agonizing. In the dark, stifling interior of the submarines, the sound of attacks intensified, echoing like thunderclaps in a storm. With each explosion, the vessel was violently shaken, tossing the crew from side to side like dolls in a turbulent tide. And then, silence. A final boom reverberated, followed by the absolute void of eternal darkness. It was the harsh reality of life aboard a German submarine, a place where death lurked with every dive. As ocean depths swallowed their forms of life, submariners stood firm, defying adversity with unwavering courage. Every heartbeat was a constant reminder of their mission and the imminent danger surrounding them. As hours dragged on, suspense hung in the air, pierced only by the steady sound of waves and the distant echo of enemy sonars. Each moment was a battle between life and death, a struggle against the forces of nature and the whims of war. In the cramped confines of the submarine, men shared nervous laughter and determined glances, finding strength in each other to face the unknown. Amidst the claustrophobic darkness, hope shone like a faint light, fueling their resolve to survive another day. And so, with each dive into the ocean depths, submariners defied fate, writing their own chapter in the history of war at sea. Their names may have been lost to anonymity, but their courage will echo through the ages, reminding all of the sacrifice and bravery of those who sailed the world's most treacherous seas. And so, as the ocean waves bore witness to their trials, submariners ventured into the dark horizons, guided by unwavering determination and courage. Each moment was a battle against the unknown, each breath a reminder of life's fragility. But despite relentless challenges, these men persevered, confronting the storms of war with unyielding resolve. Their names may fade with time, but their legacy of bravery and sacrifice will forever be etched in the annals of history. So, as we close this chapter, let us remember those who sailed into the unknown depths, whose courage echoes in the eternal winds of the sea. And if you enjoyed this tale of courage and sacrifice, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to General Jack's channel to catch all future content. Until the next journey, soldiers.